Everybody, welcome to episode 160 of Tactical Crouch. This is Kickedtripod here and back for episode 160. Like I just had said,
Dad's home.
Literally, yeah, little things. You guys did great last week, though.
You got the milk and the cigarettes, the bread.
No, keto. I'm from California. We don't do bread anymore.
Quinoa.
We do.
Are we gonna make avocado toast?
We do chaffles.
What?
Chaffles. And
what is a chaffle? Please explain.
Chaffles are actually amazing.
Yeah, but what are they though?
In the words of Oprah, I love bread. And
if that's what Oprah's like remembered for, like handing out cars, I think that's a great life. I love bread, and you get a car.
Go ahead and Google "I love bread" Oprah. I promise you, it's there. Anyways,
I believe you.
I love bread. And if you ever have done a keto diet, which I don't really do, but I try to limit my carbs. If you've ever done a keto diet, it means that you can't have carbs, so you really can't have bread, and basically any other foods that give you joy, except for you can have like sugar and fat. You can have lots of fat. Like the sugar, you can have the non-carb sugar type replacement stuff. But you can't have carbs.
Yeah.
So anyways, a chaffle is where you make bread out of cheese.
So it's like a cheese waffle.
And so what you do is you create the mix and you put it in a waffle maker, and it's called a chaffle. And then you just put like bacon, eggs, sausage. It feels like something that should like go on the midnight menu at KFC. And what did they do? Like it was like bacon, chicken, cheese between two hash brown loaves. Do you remember what they did?
That sounds like KFC. I remember their like chicken patty sandwich where it's just like chicken patties as like the bun and then like something in the middle, or maybe that was the hash brown thing. I'm not sure. It just kind of sounds like the Valiant of fast food.
Did you just bring up the Valiant on purpose?
I mean,
was that
maybe
intentional? I
think so.
Wow. All right. You know what? We're going to skip the formalities here. There's one formality we're going to do, actually.
Okay.
There's one, because I do need to thank our patron producers. Refine Bean, Ferdino Pin, Battlecrab Lotion, Rex, Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Shar, Picasso, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B, Owen, Chris R34444, or Bjorn, who listen to this podcast while on the toilet in the shower, thinking of Yiska, Peace Camper, Anxiety Pokemon, Sir Girthalot, Bronzebot, Boo How, Evan, and Alex S. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, there's 2 ways you can do it. 3 ways you can do it. Patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. We also record live on YouTube, youtube.com/tacticalcrouch. We post the shows here. We record them here. We do it all here. It's been pretty good. We've actually really liked, I personally have liked streaming on YouTube. It's been a little clunky learning the tools, but we've liked it. We have memberships set up now. We have multiple members, including the $10 a month significant Croucher membership, which we have quite a few. You can go to youtube.com/tacticalcrouch, and there's a join button there if you're interested. And like as little as $2 a month. It's great. If you want to support the podcast. And we crossed 4,000 subs on YouTube, so thanks for doing that. All right. The LA Valiant. So you guys
straight into it.
You guys talked about the LA Valiant a little bit last week.
A little bit.
But not
what they could
when
do.
I was here.
No. Feel free.
So we're gonna
Fire
just in
away.
case nobody, like, if they're like, I only listen when Kickedtripod's on the show. So for both of you, Mom, Katie, for those of you who are still following up,
hi Mom,
hi Katie. The LA Valiant essentially have uprooted their organization, moved it to the Asia region, pretty positively China, have let go most of their staff, most of their players, and have done so in a way that would make what's a good way to say this? They've done so in a way that would make bullies who poop on sidewalks like the people the people who let their dogs poop on sidewalks, they make them look like good guys. That's about the amount of the amount of, I think, respect and intention that they put around this whole move thing, and it pisses me off, and I was so upset when I saw it. So anyways, Valiant have moved. They're going. I'm pissed about it.
Unceremoniously.
I had a few people. There was a Reddit comment, and I had a few tweets, or just like, are the Valiant below the Toronto Defiant now for you? Like, do they finish at the bottom? And I hope that the Valiant have such an awful season that they don't even qualify. They like drop out a quarter of the way out. They don't even go. There'd be an asterisk next to their name, and we don't even talk about the 2021 Valiant because they didn't even participate.
At this point, do you feel like, is it like, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but is like the messaging just like a passing of the torch? Like, okay, this is your problem now. Like, you rebrand it, whatever, do what you want with it. Like, is there a little bit more to read into it other than just like poor messaging? Literally, like you said before the show, we were kind of talking about it, just radio silence for like months, and then just like, oh, gotta go. Like, is there more to kind of read into that, you think?
What would that be?
A possible like hastily built rebrand, like a complete like operations handoff to like somebody else that's like, their pay grade now. Like, this is your problem to handle. Like, is there any meat and potatoes to it?
So, I mean, I think that there's a few levels of like this could go, right? So we had the prevailing Schmelo of Schmott's opinion leak that was the whole franchise has been sold to China. It's under Chinese ownership, and you have, right. I think, a more medium approach, which is Valiant ownership is staying there, but they're transferring management rights to a team that can actually manage a team in China, which they are not equipped to do.
Makes sense.
And then you have just the whole like the Immortals Gaming Group. Is that what it? What's it? Immortals Gaming? What?
Gaming Club.
IGC. Immortals Gaming Club. Which, are you 12? Immortals Gaming Club is, sorry.
Gotta get in that traditional sports.
To all the European club. Soccer club fans who are like, what? We call all of our like teams clubs.
Oh, minor quick rant. Apparently, like NA soccer, like we have a battle between like calling it soccer clubs and football clubs here, I guess. I don't know. Thought I saw that recently. I'm like, there's like a team called like, like the Miami, again, just throwing it out there, like Miami Soccer Club, and then there's like a football club. It's just like, wouldn't we just? Who? I don't know, some MLS team, like North America.
Who cares?
Oh yeah, true.
Got him. Yay! We got Joe. Fair. All right. Anyways, so. Anyways, Immortals Gaming Club, just like totally cut off the the means of NA production, and have moved that all over to Asia, and basically, just give a big old all to everybody else. I find that one the least likely. I think the second one is the most likely. And then in that case, I think it's just very much messaging, very much professional courtesy, very much not being human beings. And if they lacked the foresight or understanding to know that, they may not be a human being, and they're just totally incompetent and not qualified for their jobs.
Yeah.
If it wasn't and they knew exactly what they're doing, well, then yeah, you're a human being, and I hope that you hear this. And you can, I don't know, you can call me on Discord, and then I will 1v1 you, but you will have to play in Asia on NA ping.
What game though?
Any game.
Like
once you're on Asia
time.
ping and I'm on NA ping and we're based in NA.
1v1 me on Fortnite, baby.
I can take them in anything.
Look, like you guys know, I'm a bit of a fan of the Valiant storyline, and I'm definitely a fan of Packing and the team that he built and the players that went through thick and thin, heavily performed above their means. But the outrage and the level of it doesn't match the certainty of facts we have, in my opinion, which is unfortunate and is exactly the reason why how it was put out wasn't great. Because okay, let's look at the timelines, right? We very much knew that, like, no Valiant player can tell me that they didn't know that there was a possibility that franchise was going to be sold. That was publicly available knowledge, I think, reported by Bloomberg. Like they were going to attempt to sell the roster.
It was on the table for sure.
There was a report sometime in October, I think, by Bloomberg News that I'm
going to say it was November, but again, it
might have been November, right? So I think you got to calculate with the risk that you're playing for a roster that isn't going to be owned by the same group. Now, of course, even if you believe that to a certain percentage, the likelihood of you all losing your job is very unlikely, of course.
Yeah.
I also don't know if we know that they knew for a while, if that makes sense. I don't think they knew for a while. I think it was pretty last minute from how the messaging.
Oh yeah, probably 100%. I don't think the business deal was done until, like you said, last minute, so that like the players won't know. They probably didn't. I would wager that they probably didn't know that talks were getting or progressing as fast as they were or as slow as they were. Like, I don't think they had information to be, they weren't privy to that information, I would imagine. Again, speaking out of school,
and let me tell you right now, like, I'm not defending this org as a whole, and there's definitely stuff that I also haven't said the last word on. I can tell you this much.
Sure.
But
sounds like you're defending him though.
Well, I'm
defending the information that is currently available and the actual issue or the thing that people take issue with. I think there is a real chance that this org at the organizational level was just incompetent in building all of their assets out. The first major mistake being the acquisition of Infinite with Optic and the Outlaws, everything in that regard. And that this situation currently is rather than a terrible decision, is a triage move. Is it triage? Is that how you pronounce it? Mm-hmm. Triage move. That,
I don't know, it's French. I don't pay attention to
it. Theoretically, right? I'm not saying that I have the behind the scenes information, because I definitely have insights into the IGC money bag. But there's a point of view where if we had that information, we could all be sitting here and say, it sucks, but at least we're saving the jobs of the esports players in all these other games. And I'm not saying that from any type of background juice. And there's definitely plenty of stuff going wrong to get to that point that is most definitely about incompetence.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a world where that particular move is just an unfortunate one.
Oh, now, for sure. And again, I don't think people are upset at the move. It's just everything adjacent and neighboring it.
Esports
also, maybe you...
Sorry, esports is volatile, and we know this, and we've talked about it. Most of us have lived through it in multiple different esports. I don't think any of us here, and I don't think any player either, is under the misunderstanding that their jobs are always secure, and that whatever else, even that they would get as much courtesy as they would in a stable profession.
Mm.
but you expect some. You expect some. You expect at least transparency. All you have to do is say, hey, you know what? We actually are not very, like, confident in what we're doing right now. I've had to say it before. Like, we don't, like, to make it easier, we don't know what we're doing right now, but here is what is happening. I want to have this on your radar. I want you to be a successful human being. I want you to continue to grow in esports or in Overwatch esports. It's a very easy and a very professional and I think mature conversation to have when you don't know. And when you aren't willing to have that conversation, it means that you're beyond level of incompetence, or you're unwilling to admit that you messed up, and you're just trying to sweep it under the rug, hope it doesn't have, you know, a bad press day. And that is kind of why I want to harp on it more.
Yeah. The problem is that it's not like this in a corporate America anymore. You cannot just admit guilt. You're running into lawsuits left and right. In an ethically working environment, yes, that's how it should be dealt. Not in one where you have investors and shareholders and whatnot. It's sadly not the way you do it. Like, I could even see how there's some legal technicality about the reply of IGC to Halo saying, like, this rumor is false. Because, like, what if your shareholder says, wait, you sold this? Doesn't that mean you get some millions back? That type of stuff, right? And to just, like, drown that out. So, like, maybe also the game just sucks. I will say, like, there's no way okay, I know for a fact not everything has morally and ethically worked out there. And there are some people that will hear it. But I think we would do better to chill out until we have the full facts.
No! Yiska, are you familiar with at-will employment? Is that a term that you're...
Yes.
I don't know what the terms of employment are at Immortals or LA Valiant, but lots of companies, especially in California, Colorado, a few others that are at-will employment states, legally don't have to give you any notice or really do do all. So the fact that there's a very real instance in which there's no legal ramifications for anything they do personnel wise.
Okay. But how do you think, like, let's say this deal was made, like the finality of that deal was made, I don't know, maybe a week before it became public at worst. Does that change anything to you? Because
to me,
it doesn't matter if as soon as you sign it,
from how you communicate it from a legal ramification standpoint.
No, what I mean is, does it change anything ethically? Like, you're the business owner, right? Okay. You're trying to make a deal. Yep. That is crucial to be made for your business. Theoretically, once again, no juice. Once again, like, people behind the scenes might be watching this and saying, no, it's not like this at all. And these
theoretically, Mr. Joseph Valiant, owner of the Valiant, is trying to make a sale. He's trying to sell the LA Valiant.
Yeah. And maybe a sell is possible, but some other deal is. And you gotta show that your income streams, for instance, that maybe that's the deal, right? Like, maybe you gotta show people that you can make money, and it's. Okay. But by the way, I totally believe that this is financially feasible, more so than the LA Valiant were, given the number of viewership, like the viewership size, the fan favorites are still outside for Chinese viewers, the volume of Chinese viewers. Possibly, like, what kind of sponsorship dollars are coming in, possibly what kind of local... You
think it may be a smart business move for the LA Valiant to move to China?
Maybe, yeah.
It may be. Sure. No disagreements.
Yeah. That's my entire argument, by the way. I'm not talking about probabilities. I actually think it's rather likely that how we are all interpreting this and what's giving us this emotional response is the more likely thing. But I feel like it feels so weird that we're jumping the gun on this because, of course, yes, like emotions are running high because we see people that we love and learn to love just like get kicked to the curb. But I feel like we don't have nearly enough information about what's going on to say, like, it's like sometimes you gotta, like, if you're a ruler, sometimes you gotta let some people.
So there
go.
is a flip side, because generally, Yiska, and I think on the show over 160 episodes, we've done a good job at like staying away from like conjecture and things that would really potentially hurt other people if we were to be wrong on. And I don't necessarily know that this is one of those instances. Right. Number two, we are not so ignorant as to know that there is also kind of waiting out the clock. And so if you're the LA Valiant and let's say everything is as devious as we're speculating, and it's all that devious, the number one ally you have is time. How do you talk about the LA Valiant in March or April when the league is starting up again? You've got that brand new stuff. How do you hold them accountable? How do you make sure that those stories? So there has to be a level of, I don't know, guys. Like, I can't imagine the situation being differently. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about the implications of it. We're not necessarily, I'm not going and saying, hey, Philip Valiant or whatever, Joe Valiant, whatever his name was. I forgot whatever we named we never said like that guy should lose his job and shouldn't be able to adopt a dog. Like, we're not necessarily calling for that, but we are calling for, more than anything else through this entire thing, is professional transparency with your team, your organization, and your players. That's it.
To the best of your ability.
And that is what that's what they f***ed up.
Yep.
They didn't mess up selling. They didn't mess up wanting to try a different market. Business is business, and I get that, and it sucks, and it's a tough thing, and there's players who aren't going to find jobs in Overwatch League because the LA Valiant aren't there. There are talented marketing and PR people and coaching and player managers and translators who aren't going to have jobs in Overwatch League this year because of this move, and that sucks too, and we obviously don't want that to happen, but there also is the aspect of that is part of just working. But you should know about it as soon as possible. You should have a transparent conversation about it as soon as possible. You should do whatever you have, whatever you are able to within your means to ease that transition. And the people who are, org level and above are not the people making $45,000 a year in LA on a social media manager salary.
Yeah.
They're not. They're making high six figures at least. It's not like people aren't being well compensated for trying to create these different organizations and trying to run them at the very top. So from that perspective, it is completely unacceptable to me to see a dozen or more people left out on the street well after the bell is rung for, organizations looking to make pickups and hires. It's a challenging, it's a challenging piece. And I think that is where, it would have to be a very interesting story, in which case, like, well, I wasn't looking at selling the Valiant and I woke up on Monday and it was such a good deal. I had to sell immediately and I didn't know until Tuesday. And then I told everyone. If that happens, Philip Valiant, I am sorry. But assuming that you are shopping it around, I get it. You're not going to talk about those preliminary conversations, testing the waters, whatever. But as soon as documents are starting to be drawn up, conversations are starting to be had, you start to have those conversations because there's so many reasons to do it. Number one, how are you going to transition your fan base? What are you going to do with your LA Valiant fans? Do you just expect them to follow you to China with that kind of messaging? Hell no. You just gave them all to the Gladiators, which Gladiators, I love you so much. But let's talk about that we aren't going anywhere tweet. That was awful. Don't do that again. Anyways.
Yeah.
So how do you transition that organization there? How do you not make the Overwatch League look like it's run by balloon animals?
True.
Not like the league itself, but like the people who are running the franchise.
I mean, yeah, you do represent it. Yeah.
You know, you got this one guy over here who just sold his stuff, let go of his staff, and be like, yeah, we spent $20 million on this. Come on.
I agree. But I think there's still situations where, while possibly not maximally informed, this was so last minute that people found out as that's theoretically the case.
I mean, sure, that very well could be the case. I still think you can handle it with a lot more grace and a lot more.
I mean, the social media stuff is completely out of pocket. How they wrap that up, but yeah,
it is.
And that wasn't done by any of the social or marketing team, as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's sat, on the keys typing that out like just from their own. I think that's just like a cut and copy and response that they've got from an executive that they have to post because that's their job, right? Like it's not their fault.
Third-party PR who's never worked in esports.
Sure. And I think that's where most of the gripe's coming from. So like for the people who are like, oh, my favorite player isn't an owl, I go to Yiska and I say that's the response that I'd give them. And for most other people, I side with John. I think the move isn't the problem. It's just everything else around it. The communication to literally just being transparent and being like, look, this is not what happened. Give some sort of response. And create a roadmap to say, look, like this is what's happening. This is why we're doing it for whatever reason. Again, I think people can draw their own assumptions with COVID and whatnot, but I think a little bit more than just, hey, look, here's some text on a fairly colored sheet of paper, and shop's closed, boys.
Put a name
Gotta go.
to it. Yeah, you should put a name to it. You should put a camera on it. You should and again, like it's just so wrong from beginning to end that I can basically pick apart every single part of it. And any person who has any sort of experience in those fields should know that this is not how it's done. Which means that it was done by somebody who doesn't care.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is easy, this is quick, and you, I got my 24 million, so I made 4 million on this deal, and I'm gonna go buy a new Lambo. Or
I mean, again, like they didn't sell, right? So
right.
Nobody made
but
money,
like,
right?
But
the feeling's still there.
Yeah.
The feeling, the idea that I'm better off, whatever, this is just about me, I feel better, blah blah blah. Moving on.
Which reflects itself in the fan base, right? Like the fans, I think, acted semi-appropriately. Maybe they're attacking different points than what's feasible, but
a lot of people don't know what to be angry at.
Exactly. When you're left with no information, zero transparency, and it's just like, guys, there's this giant convenient rug called COVID-19. We're just gonna, kick that under there and forget about it, and have fun. It feels grimy and gross, and
so it's exactly it's grimy, it's gross. At the end of the day, no matter what, even if they come out and they're like, we did everything that we could, here's everything that we did, blah 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 blah, still grimy and gross.
I think that's infinitely better though. If they're like, look, this is the business model. Hey, COVID doesn't have like a ton of confidence or give a lot of confidence in the Overwatch League model. This is what we're forced to do. Blah, 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 blah. I think that goes over much better. I think, again, a very mature discussion in the world that we live in these days. And I think you at least hemorrhage less than just going, hey, look, gotta go, and then leave, and then nothing, and then having a bunch of tweets.
Got a sick cat. He was just in here about to.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I think it speaks to the situation when all the players are like, well, guess I don't have jobs. It speaks to that like surprise. It sucks. But I think maybe getting out in front of that and being like, look, it was last minute. We're really sorry. This is why we had to do it. Now we're leaving. Bye. I think that goes over better.
I'm just a fan of being calculated and factual in one's anger and not, throwing the baby out.
Again, raging at your favorite player leaving, I think is you're attacking the wrong person, right? Like the business is struggling. That goes without saying. COVID's been quite detrimental to the Overwatch League in general. So business for business's sake, you can't necessarily be mad at that. It sucks, but you could also spin it like Yiska's kind of dancing around as like, hey, these players that may be your favorite aren't getting an opportunity anymore, but there's obviously going to be new players entering the league and they get an opportunity, and new coaches coming in, they get an opportunity, right? Like there's definitely a maybe part to that. But I think it's a lot of neighboring topics that are really the issue.
Here's the thing where I kind of think that the anger is useful in the sense that every overreaction makes increasingly sure that stuff like that won't happen again in the same ballpark, because now people realize that it's a sore spot for a community and you don't want to do that again. Dude, like the thing is, okay, let me give you a practical example, right?
Okay.
When esports journalism started out and people were like saying like sources say type of stuff, and that was like 2010, 11, 12, Slasher and Richard Lewis were around. Like later on, Jacob Wolf came into the game and then they missed, right?
Okay.
Everyone was on them.
Yeah.
Very hard. Harder than they probably deserved. But that raised their standards.
Agreed.
Where the pain of getting a report wrong should feel like because of you, your child is going hungry to bed tonight, or worse.
Yeah, I get the feeling.
But by going like, it's inevitable that you get something wrong. It is, but that's not the type of incentive structure you want to set.
Here's the thing, though, and I get there's a slippery slope here, and we deal with this. I think that there's a lot of parallels that we could draw that I'm definitely not going to draw at the moment, but I think that there's parallels that we could draw about, drawing too quickly, and drawing, going to conclusions too quickly, circulating a story that ended up being incorrect. And even after you issue an apology and a retraction, there's damage that's been done. And that definitely exists. But there also needs to be the aspect of, we're calling on like, whoever was in charge of this move should come out publicly, explain what happens, and honestly issue some sort of apology. If they come out and we're wrong, we should do the same.
Exactly.
And we have to be okay with doing the same.
Mm-hmm. I think there is a humbleness to that. But I guess I'm too cynical. Again, I think that the comparison between an org's response to pushback and a journalist's response to getting it wrong, I feel like it's like apples to cottage cheese, if I'm going to be kind of playful with it. Especially in this situation, because all of the people that would have, in your like metaphor, would have learned that this is a sore spot are now gone. So like I'm very cynical that orgs really listen to these problems or these grievances that communities have with them most of the time, and will continue to do it just a little more underhandedly and more under the rug. But I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I think overall, like, this is not like this thing where we suddenly become aware of all the awful treatments how orgs treat their players. In general, possibly also because public pressure is very easily applied, players are actually treated pretty fairly in overall. Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's
Agreed.
definitely also parts of the story where that isn't true. But
by and large,
generally speaking, that is not like, let's say, in other situations, in other orgs, there were situations where a player was let go or a staff member, and they were allowed to use the facilities or the apartments they were in until they found a new place. Or they were paid severances beyond what was contractually agreed upon.
Sure.
Has any player or coach or member of the organization with the Valiant come forward and said any of those things to be true?
No, I think he's making
I'm talking about different organizations.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the Valiant very clearly.
I was going to say
I'm saying like I have a feeling that because we are like unrelenting in protecting our players when these things come out, that orgs usually know better than to do this. And the general treatment of players is not as bad. So in like again in that way I like the rage that everyone has. Also, like once again, like I can only highlight that part because I'm ahead of the emotional curve and have grieved through this and have punched holes in walls and like monitors because of it. Like probably a week or two and a week in advance. It is possibly that I'm at a different point.
You're a little more numb to it.
Maybe I also like getting things right the first time and not over speculating, but looking at the nitty gritties and say, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, this is right. But maybe my attitude is also not effective because it's like my dissection of what is wrong and what is right. It's not communicating a mode of thinking to or owners of like, you don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. If you ever do that, we're going to chew you out for it. It's also possible. So yeah, it's a really complex situation. But once again, definitely not absolving Valiant of unethical stuff that might have happened. I also think the late release is really damaging to the majority of that roster.
Well, it's not even it's double-sided in that way too, where it's just like you screw your players. At least your coaches have somewhere to go, which is great, and I think that's fantastic. And I'm sure, and I know for a fact that Packing 10 and Gunbar are going to do great things in Valorant, 100%, without a doubt. I'd be willing to put money on that today. And again, lo and behold, look at the results recently. So not only is their roster gone, those players are going to have a hard time finding homes. You're selling so late. Again, not selling, but you know the move was done so late in the season that you're probably going to have a hard time getting it. So again, like the nefarious angle feels really kind of too stupid to make sense. So it really does feel like just stupid business.
There's also the why I like to have nuanced views on this. It's also if we ever get more full information, that we know who the problem was and who were attempting to find solutions. And that we don't say Valiant member thus asshole.
Sure, yeah. You don't want to, again, like you said, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You want to kind of find the problem child and you know, deal with them appropriately or apply pressure appropriately. 100%.
Yeah.
But again, I really don't. I'm definitely not on the pulse of the community, so maybe I'm, you know, the ignorant one here. But I feel like it isn't about the move in particular. It's just messaging.
Yeah, no messaging. I can't defend. Other than saying like maybe some of the stuff had to be done for legal reasons. There's also probably people just feeling insecure about their performance and protecting themselves. Definitely a bunch of deleted tweets in there. That fiasco. Yep. And yeah, no, like certainly it's much more likely that that inexcusable shit has happened during that ordeal. I will also readily tell you that part of the reason why I'm saying this is because I think we could have gotten more out of that story had we not moved this quickly. And I'm salty about that. 100%.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're not going to get a fan of that from me, right? Like or I guess I'd be the opposite. I definitely would be a fan of what you're saying. Measured, a little bit more careful reporting, let's say, or actual just reporting.
But it like 2021 still doesn't feel like the year of it. It's either double speed in this direction or dash double speed backwards, and that's
100%.
It's really hard.
Everything's fast right now, baby. It's all ADHD. If I lose, if you don't grip me in 10 seconds, then I'm clicking out, baby. That's all I think. We also
all kind of just want to feel something.
I feel enough, thanks. I'm good with the feels, but I don't know about you, but I could use with some less feeling. I could feel a whole lot less.
I mean, but it's, like how you're at home and you just also really want an enemy.
No.
And like,
but maybe
I'm
the weird
a great enemy.
No, yeah, it's just invisible and it's just like, yeah. There's nothing to root against, right?
Yeah. And then, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm way overanalyzing this. Of course, like, yeah. No, like,
I appreciate
that's definitely also like Captain Overthink is also definitely my MO. So,
okay, so two things. Again, to your point of like, well, if like the community pushes back hard enough, then people learn. I think our next topic definitely does not support that kind of theory, at least, or maybe I'm misunderstanding it. But we'll get to that. And also, from a league perspective, like if you're in the front office, if you two are in the front office and this Valiant stuff takes place, is that something you're happy about?
Forget the league office. If I'm one of the owners, I'm maybe a little bit peeved about this, as I am over Titans screwing up and removing a major like drawing point from that. Also got to be real. I feel like if you had more proper leadership in season 1, then someone could have contained XQC, and then we would have someone that has three times the viewership that we do as a league. Right? Like all these things in hindsight, it's just like,
and it's not a league. Like I can't look to the league and go, you guys need to hire better general manager, because it's not their fault, right? Like, but like from a league perspective, it's just like, man,
yeah, we toss some coins, people out. Dude. Like we toss some coins, and it's like it could be. I mean, I understand. Like this is really like we're kind of making up as we building the plane as we're flying it.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I need to wrap my mind around something before we keep going. Do you believe that XQC would still be in the league if the league was less punishing? And you think that XQC would actually still be playing Overwatch?
No. No, it's not about the league. It's about had someone in with possibly better leadership qualities and better grip controlled that situation. I think that could have not, like, because keep in mind, it's not that XQC was the only one just like speaking his mind, and it's definitely possible that he would have just like had those acting out moments anyway. But it would have also been possible that he's
I think it was
maybe
probably
maybe a little less entertaining, but someone reels him in and says, look, if you want to be a professional player, one of the best players in the world, you got to tone it down a little bit, dude. And also get these like bigoted ideas out of your head, and we can play ball. And then maybe we don't have a personality that's as exciting, apparently, as XQC seems to be, judging by the viewership numbers he's pulling at the moment.
I don't think there's a single world in which we see XQC beyond halfway through season 2.
No
matter
think...
what.
I think you wouldn't, because you can't give him a financial incentive to stay.
To stop streaming. Yeah, 100%.
I agree. I also don't think that it it's not in his best interests, and it's not probably in his personal long-term interests.
You want to hear a controversial statement?
Okay.
80% of the people in CDL are like XQC. And it somehow works.
It depends on the product that you're trying to create, I guess. Like if it's also different games, different audiences, which call for different products. It's,
talk to me in 12 years after Overwatch League has, over 15 years of professional play and, building up that kind of entire scene. And then I think, within that scene, you have those personalities and you've had it for long enough that enough of those people come out. Now we're talking about XQC type personalities, but we're not talking about XQC type. It's almost like personalities with a lowercase p versus uppercase p. It's like I think of it more as McGravy to kind of almost stay on topic here. CDL I think has a lot of McGravies and no XQC. Overwatch League has one less McGravy. And I would argue that we have no XQCs, and I don't even know if we have a McGravy anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I
think we could.
I get what you're saying, Yiska, in the sense that you have very marketable, very outspoken, and very, I think, influential to the scene and how people perceive them, not just in the tournaments, but in off content as well, and streams, and just what the esport is. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that there's very many singular players that you put next to Overwatch League and go, oh yeah.
Because they all leave. And I think that was the messaging of his point, to your credit, is that like all of our XQCs, all of our Sinatras, everybody that we kind of like push towards the face of the game just end up leaving. Why is that? Is it because the business is bad? Because the game's bad? I don't know.
XQC.
Yeah, I don't think XQC was like the hill
was ever going to be a long-term.
No, probably not.
But
probably not.
Same with like DeFran again. I think he's just like here to have a good time. And the second
DeFran is a different case because it's just
they're entertainers who are good enough to play pro,
sure,
versus pros who are good enough to entertain.
Right.
Like I look at Jake as like the flip side of that. He's a pro who's good enough to entertain. Avast is I think another example of somebody who's good enough to play pro, but also is good enough to entertain. And we have some of those people, but we don't. I think I can honestly say I can't think off the top of my head right now in this moment there is a single person who is an entertainer who is good enough to go pro.
Yeah, like Super is one you probably have to throw in, but
Super, you know what? Yeah. Like if I was gonna put somebody there, probably Super. I'll be honest, I don't know what some of like the Chinese and Korean players are doing, and they might have some, on their own proprietary platforms and stuff.
Yep.
But overall, like
and that's a huge part. We can't forget that we are kind of missing out on the stories of probably 60% of the league, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's also unfortunately 100%. The case.
I have a question for you then. If the quality of player went down about 25%, but it means that we got every team had multiple Jakes and McGravies and whatever else, would you be okay with that? And to like the other point, do you think CDL, by having these mini XQCs, do you think that we get the most competitive Call of Duty?
Nah. I'm pretty sure some of the brands that people have created have propped them up to be almost like you can't just banish them from the league. Like if they want to play competitive,
they can.
Then their draw is just so big that you probably have to keep them in. But I also don't know about the CDL enough about the CDL. It also feels like some of the most entertaining personalities in that league are fortunately some of the best, and they win rings. So in that regard, like I think Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's also, you said, would you accept that? I personally wouldn't accept that, but I think the question I thought you were asking is, would it be better for business?
Oh.
And yes, I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
So
like 25% skill level that nobody but like 10% of the people
nobody's gonna notice.
Chopped off, and then more entertaining person. Yeah, that's. But the thing is also, and that's Dogman had Monty on, and Monty made a good point about the XQC situation, which is by coming down as hard as the Overwatch League did, and possibly had to based on what he did.
Sure.
That it's sort of signaled to other pro players that nothing goes. And we once again to the point of like overreaction like shuts down any sort of shenanigans. Unfortunately, that little bit of I don't want to call it toxicity because it feels like it has a wrong connotation, but like that cheeky little shit
banter
type of personality that is also kept quiet, because I will also tell you there are definitely people in contenders in very good teams that are not getting Overwatch League because of how they market themselves.
That want to let that out, but immediately are pushed back from the community and even from, I would imagine staff. Again, there's a line and you should not cross that line. But, some harmful little banter and flame with people and not teammates, but, opposing teams, I think that's good for most things. It gets people a little riled up, galvanizes them.
I think we're at a point where we almost have a spectrum of competitive esports to entertainment esports. And it's not that you're one or the other, but I think Overwatch League is trying too hard to be a competitive esport, that they don't let themselves be an entertaining esport. And when those issues, and I think, especially with like the XQC drama, I think even on this show, I was very, I think hard on XQC, and I felt like he should be fine. At the same time, I'm like, what's a $200? Well, what's a $2,000 fine or $5,000 fine? Like, what is that? What is 2 games to XQC? A couple extra streams. I just don't. I don't know. It's tough. And when you get, like, if you ever get with an argument with somebody who's a purist against personalities like XQC, I think it's really difficult to win.
Because
it always comes down to like, so you're willing to like demean.
Yes, it's a moral high ground
for entertainment, and and I think in XQC's case, like, I think a lot of that is honestly valid. But I do think that there are, tamer versions of that as soon as XQC is eliminated out of the equation, they become the new, like, head to go on the chopping block, and it just kind of keeps going down until you have nothing but, like,
headless players.
Blended rice and, I don't know, oat milk. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do with this anymore? And it's tough because I'm like, I'm in no way saying, like, I want people to feel disenfranchised or uncomfortable just so that Overwatch League has higher viewership and is more profitable, because I think that's on the other level, like, inhuman.
Oh yeah, that's gross.
But I do.
That's TMZ. Like,
but there is like the, what if somebody on Twitter tweets to another person, be like, hey, we're gonna team up and eat your lunch. Let them have it. Let them go at it. Let them make fun of them a little bit. Let them do, those things, whatever. Like, have it, and like, let's do it. I don't know.
You want to hear something funny? Yeah. 9 minutes ago, Activision Blizzard reported 2020 revenues of $8.09 billion, 25% year over year. Net income was $2.2 billion, 46% year over year. Oof. So At least the games aren't going in the bad direction, I suppose.
Well, sure, the games might be okay. The company might be okay, but is our neck of the woods doing that great, do you think?
I learned over the last couple of weeks that is all that matters anymore.
Really?
To forces of power. That the economic bottom line is served, right? But like,
seems short-sighted, but what do I know?
It's interesting, definitely. That's are there any Overwatch numbers in here? Sadly, no.
Come on. No chance.
Interestingly, no, I would say.
Yeah.
Nope.
But yeah. I think they're messaging through the punishment and the heavy hand they took in season 1 definitely set a tone. And we kind of see the repercussions for that. I think there's ways that they can bounce back through again. I hate to drudge on content and whatnot, but I think you can put a voice on, some harmless, cheeky banter, as Yiska put it, and kickstart that back up. Let the players feel like they still have a voice, but definitely draw that very, very clear line and say you cannot say certain things. And have fun with it. There's perfectly is. I think if you give them space to have fun and give it enough time, I think we can have a healthy ecosystem in that regard. But if we don't, then we won't. I guess it's one of those build it and they will come sort of scenarios. And we'll have to see. I think taking something like the old watch point and bringing players on and again teasing the trash talk out of them, as cringy as it might be at the start. I think you saw that this year or at least rather last year, with the interviews during the Pick'em show. Get a little bit of something, and it's going to start really gross and really dumb and kind of goofy, but I think it progresses once people feel a little bit more comfortable to kind of play a little bit and not just be like, yes, we will have a good showing and we'll please cheer for us. Thank you. Let them have fun. They're here to entertain and obviously compete. That goes without saying. But I think the players should be able to entertain to a point.
And everybody's brand of entertainment is a little bit different.
100%.
Not everything is universally
100%.
entertaining, and we have to be willing to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Except for 2CP, in which case it is entertaining for no one. Next up, I do. I mean, we don't even have a ton of time anymore, but I do want to talk about this Harsha interview,
right,
Yiska, that you did. And it wasn't just released, but it was released about 2 hours ago. If you haven't watched it and read it,
do so. It's quite
good. You are everything that's wrong with the world. Just kidding. You're not, but you could do better.
Do better.
There's a lot to unpack here. But there's one overarching thing, and I think that this is actually pretty this is kind of it feels pretty timely based on the conversation we just had, just blasting Immortals,
yes,
based on information that we didn't totally have at the time. Now, to be fair, I don't think any of us here have ever branded Harsha as disingenuous, unforthcoming, opaque,
the opposite,
or selfish. We're all fallible human beings, and whatever, but as far as anybody I've ever talked to about Harsha, it's always been positive, and I think publicly, wherever it's been appropriate for me, I've defended Harsha. But there's a lot of people who, and I think Yiska, a lot of where it comes to what you were kind of talking about earlier is like, I don't want to rush, I don't want to get the wrong information out, I don't want to form opinions based on incomplete facts.
Right.
Harsha has not had a very easy go of it from, fans who have been critical of the teams that he's coached. Season 1, San Francisco Shock. And then the fall apart of the Titans, the Houston Outlaws, even last year. A lot of people look to and they see, you know, we've talked about Dream, we've talked about Harsha, we've talked about Baroy, and we all hold them in really high regard as minds of Overwatch and coaches. And there's always the comment of like, if they were so good, well, why did they suck last year? And blah, 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 blah. Well, no, with Harsha, I think there's a little bit more that we know about as to why some of these situations were as unfortunate as they were.
Yep.
And a lot of people used incomplete information to blame the wrong people.
And I will say, of course, once again, we only have the one person side. I think Harsha did a good job at seeing both sides and what he said. Well, of course, like everyone's biased in their view and in the information that they have. So definitely take that also with whatever human inaccuracy will apply to everyone. In terms of like the outlaw stuff specifically, I can say like tomorrow we're going to release the outlaw stuff of the interview. So we're going to talk about what limitations there were, for instance, for season 3 and what the ideas are behind season 4 and stuff like that. But as far as this part of the interview goes, it is pretty revealing on some of the behind the scenes stuff. And to me personally, it was satisfying to see some situations where people were wronged, kind of, you know, like having a little bit of the full picture like added towards the entire situation. That is true for the Titan situation, for the bumper situation, for Harsha and the Washington Justice situation. Yep. These were stories that I followed intensely, looked into, never could really, and once again, report upon, but also like, just like because Harsha said this, of course, we don't have the entire picture, and there might be just as many real world limitations behind the people that were seemingly coming out on the wrong side of this story here. And we don't know what their higher ups are telling them and whatnot. But the end of the day, the things that remain for me, I think the one that shocked me the most was that, like he said, 70% of the reason why he left the Titans despite having a better offer is because he knew the team was going to fall apart. And that shocked me. Because maybe whatever happened was always going to happen to some degree. I don't know.
Which is incredibly surprising because anybody who will admit to watching Runaway and being big Runaway fans is they are a family. They get along. They're a K-pop group and they'll always be together. Which wasn't always the case. Or which obviously wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
I think Yiska, forgive me if I'm misquoting this or misattributing this to Harsha, or maybe you wrote this in the TLDR, but I think you put it very well, or somebody put it very well, that families fight.
Yeah,
I think it was very clear that these group of people enjoyed each other immensely. I don't think you still do, right? But sometimes you fight, and when families fight, it gets pretty messy, right? And sometimes it's irreconcilable, and sometimes you can come back at a later date and, you know, still have a bond of some sort. So I don't think it's completely wrong, but I think there's an underpinning that people just don't want to admit, where it's like, yeah, sometimes you fight with the people you're close with, and sometimes it sucks, and sometimes it changes your jobs and it changes your life. But that's kind of life, right? It kind of reflects itself in this story. At least from my experience. And I thought that was particularly poignant, kind of beautiful. So yeah, I don't think the family thing was too wrong. I think it was just more real than people expected it.
Yeah. What was also interesting to see was maybe the unpreparedness of the Titans towards the challenge of having a team like this. I mean, we kind of knew that there was something like
I mean, after the whole sports training facility scenario.
Yeah,
was pretty
I
clear.
mean, that is sheer unbelievable in the context of esports and sports. Like, as if anyone like worked from this underground bunker. I don't want to sell cells because I wouldn't over dramatize, but yeah, like we saw some pictures of that in the past, right? So it wasn't pretty, and for a long extended period of time during a global pandemic, was bound to be problematic, especially if you downgrade from a mansion in the Hollywood Hills that was so large that you needed 3 Wi-Fi lines to serve Wi-Fi across the entire house.
Which is bizarre to me. Like, I can't fathom something that big personally, but that's just
They
me.
do have a house tour, I think.
I mean, yeah, I've seen a house tour,
channel.
but that does not do it justice apparently, because I'm like, oh, nice house.
It is.
I don't immediately go three landlines or 3 Wi-Fi lines, right? Like that doesn't translate.
It was like almost every other house you get in comparison would have been a downgrade. I think to downgrade as hard while keeping the majority of the players around. Therefore, like, once again, we're like monkeys on the treadmill. Like, if I eat caviar or like truffles every day, then maybe, okay, I'm just going to use your metaphor because Kobe steak won't be as good because it's like a little cheaper if I get it served next day. On the other hand, if I'm eating ramen noodles, then
frozen pizza and eggs.
Or frozen pizza and eggs, then a proper restaurant food, will probably make me happy.
Probably do.
Now, the downgrade of quality of life there is also something that should be taken into account, I think. But the idea that the Titans organization wasn't prepared to support a team that was top of the league was telling.
Before we get off that, continue. Say your piece, and then I want to kind of branch out
talk.
That topic.
Not giving a guy his salary for 4 or 4.5 months.
Come on.
Living in the Hollywood Hills while you're probably paying like mid 5 figures rent a month to keep that thing afloat, while your dude eats frozen pizzas, eggs, and milk to sustain himself over
run your
a
team.
112-hour work week is inexcusable.
And
I don't know who needs to hear this.
Yep.
Whoever is in charge and the bottleneck there needs to get their stuff together. That is inexcusable.
That's exactly what I was referencing when you made the point that, like, if you push back hard enough, these orgs are going to learn. This is a prime example of that not happening. I don't know how many times in esports it's like, pay your people, pay them on time, make sure they get paid, please. Countless times in the last 10 years that I've been at least, following esports, that has been a constant trend, and it just doesn't stop. It doesn't quit. It continues to happen. And that's where I go, I'm cynical. The more new people we get in, the more like unprepared people. And I don't know who to wag my finger at. Is that, looking at the league staff and going, what kind of messaging are you giving to these owners that they're woefully underprepared? I don't know. Like, it's somebody's at fault here, and it's tough to figure out who it is. But I'm overly cynical when it comes to like organizations learning and becoming like better at this. I feel like they just look at this, and it's kind of messaged the same way as well, where it's just like, yeah, it's something in my portfolio. I don't really care. Some of them do. Some of them, without a doubt, I think they're very obvious. The ones that do care, and then I feels like the majority don't really care that much. And you see these same problems crop up again and again and again. People not being paid on time, people not being paid adequate wages. It seems to be a recurring thing. And that's where my cynicism kind of comes from.
Yeah.
What did you say before that? Damn it.
I'm really glad that someone finally went on record and said, by the way, I work 110 hours a week. I mean, over several weeks in a row.
Yeah, but that's video games. It's coaching video games. Try doing real work.
110, dude.
Try
like,
doing
that's
real
16.
work for a living.
Cap.
Dude. Oh, like that's it's not
people.
sustainable. Like, then yeah, I don't know. Like, we got to take care of people better. Like, you can't be functional. Like that, he worked 3 jobs while being paid for 0 for 4 months.
Maybe
like,
I think that was where I wanted to head next. Is like I think this again furthers the idea that coaching. I can only necessarily speak on this in terms of Overwatch esports, but it really doesn't do justice exactly what you're supposed to do or general managing. I think like the support staff titles do not adequately encapsulate everything. I think when people hear coach, you go, oh, you're like the playbook. You're like the X's and O guy. It's like, well, yeah. And I'm also like their surrogate parent. I'm the scout. I'm the house owner. I pay the bills. I manage everything. I have to review everything. I'm in the litigation process of visas and whatnot. It's like there's so many different titles that it's just like, oh, there's not people for that. It's like, no.
Yeah.
So like coach doesn't do it justice. And I think that the Harsha story furthers that along, and I think should give him a whole lot more social respect than what he deserves. I think people look at the results that his teams have gotten and it doesn't do justice to how he's operated behind the scenes. I think most people
blame season 2 Titans on the coaching staff. Like the fact that the season 2 Titans coaching staff is what caused the collapse in season 3.
Yeah, I think they're
and I will say in Harsha's credit, he did point out that he recognized they made mistakes, for instance, in the handling of the team in stage 1 and stage 2, because they were so dominant. They felt like they could let them off the leash. They were like he showed himself pretty apologetic, or not apologetic, but rather
held himself accountable
and responsible, that maybe they could have done something to keep Bumper a little bit happier without knowing if that would have done anything. But
yeah, well, I mean, but that's all we're asking for, right? Like, we're not asking, like, there's nobody saying that a coach should be perfect. There's nobody saying that somebody like should be perfect in their role. But I can say this, I can't think of a single time we've brought somebody onto the show and asked them about a situation like this where we haven't gotten a well-reasoned response, even if it was the wrong one. It's like, here was my thinking at the time.
Yes.
Here's what we were hoping for. And we were wrong. And
I say this all the time, by the way. Like, if you actually sit down and talk with professionals in Overwatch, they're all ridiculously intelligent.
Yeah.
And
annoying.
Like, if you think you know more than they do, you're wrong.
Unless
just period.
Yeah.
Fair.
Like, everyone that's on the ground floor, like, we're really filtering out the guys that are just there for the paycheck or not doing much.
Mm-hmm.
We have all, like,
are you foreshadowing?
Talking to the general managers and the coaches and even the players to an extent, like, all of them are like wicked smart. And
which I don't want to get on this horse, but we're going to get on it very briefly.
Ride 'em,
would
cowboy.
Be much more apparent if organizations empowered and created content around allowing people to see that aspect of them. They were allowed to come on more podcasts so that they could be more open and honest about it. And we didn't have to learn about this 2 years after somebody was in a role. And 30% of the fan base has already moved on to something different.
Okay, here's an actionable plan for any org that may or may not be listening. Screw your TSM Legends style little mini doc series that you're doing. Stick a camera in the scrims for a stage. Compile that footage, eliminate anything that's damning, post at the end of the stage, reap the benefits.
I mean,
nobody wants an 80% gameplay style footage. Everybody's seen the game. We don't want to see it again. there's enough highlights. Please give me genuine and
I think
new
teams tried
information.
though, right? Like
No.
Outlaws had something like this season 1, I think.
I think, well, Valiant definitely had something like this in season 1, and look where that got them. I think the Valiant, or rather the Houston Outlaws in season 3 had something close to it, but there again, there's a lot of just filler, like, and then we were in the game, and then it's just like 4 minutes of like straight highlights, and it's just like, bro, I don't care.
I have said this before, and I'll say it again. I think the best piece of easy, low barrier content that Overwatch League can make was bring somebody in. I don't care who it is. I want it to be me, but it could be Sideshow. It could be Bren. Put them in a room with 2 microphones. After, maybe 3. After a match finishes up, bring a coach and a player, or 2 players, or any combination. Bring them in right afterward. Hit record. Have a conversation about that match. 10 to 15 minutes.
I think you have to make that contractually obligated, though.
You would.
I
mean, well, to be fair,
point.
I feel like a lot of coaches and players would do that if you had the right people. Because look at what Sideshow did. He did this. He basically did this with all of his interviews at the beginning of season 3.
I think he was doing. Maybe it is the right person. I don't know. It's a constant thing, and it's not just an Overwatch thing. I think it's just a general esports thing that, like, immediately after games, if you lose, you're not getting an interview. Like 9 times out of 10, it ain't happening. I don't know. Maybe that is a specific thing.
That's where esports then needs to grow and mature.
Yes, agreed.
Because we have that everywhere else. It's almost an expectation. People want to know.
Yep.
The biggest issue that you're going to have with that type of content that I'm proposing is you need the right person to ask the right questions so it doesn't become monotonous. And we had this with the post. We already did post-game interviews on the stage, and nothing against the people who have done those things, but it's the same thing. What was going through your mind at this moment? Well, you were down or you were up at this place at the halftime. How did you turn it around? Or what did the other team change that caused you guys to fall behind? Like, we've heard these questions a million bajillion times.
Yeah.
And so, like, as much as I want it to be me, like, I would love for somebody more like Yiska to actually do it. Because they are creative enough to, like, always have very interesting and insightful questions, where if I, like, no joke, if I were ever chosen for it, I would make Yiska write all the questions and I would just ask them. Is basically how it would work, and I would split it with him. But there has to be something there. There has to be that level of content there, and I'm so sick of harping on it. But Overwatch League teams, your content sucks.
True. Be bold, and the old I again, I'll celebrate it to the end of the earth. I think Florida's doing a good job. I think they're probably the only team that's actually, like, trying to do something new, trying to do something different. I think it could be a lot better. I think it could continue to be more different. I'd continue to be a little bit more bold, but I think they're doing a good job and they should be applauded for it.
Oh,
and then you have teams like God.
To Fire's point, they shouldn't be paywalling it, that content.
No.
Not for special pass holders, not for anything like that. Knock that off. Like, that's universally accessible. That should be universally accessible content.
I think if you want to do any kind of extracurricular, like, interview, maybe you could talk about that, but anything like pre-post game, I think that just needs to be part of the show rollout. Easily accessible. But if you want, like, extracurricular interviews with the coach, maybe a look inside, I don't know. I think there are things that you could put behind a paywall, but I wouldn't touch, like, things that would actively
but I think
help
that you have to have the content in the paywall or outside of the paywall. So, you know, like,
agreed.
You have to have that there and have people consuming it and enjoying it before you try to put the best of it behind the paywall. Because right now people don't even want the content you're putting out. Now you want to try and charge for it.
Yeah, that's damning. That is a death sentence. I think there's a lot of things that teams could do to specifically target YouTube, and I think we'll definitely be seeing that. But I think there's a lot
And we have
of
clips
like,
now on YouTube too.
yeah, we do.
It goes a
but
long
they're
way. It goes a long way.
100%. I don't think it's like this. From my understanding, it's not really the same functionality. Like you have to wait until after. I think
I haven't done that much into it, but I'm assuming that they're gonna have.
I think I saw like a headline, and I'm
Okay.
yeah. But again, it's a headline, so
We'll go back.
do I
We'll go
actually
back and research that for you.
yeah.
So
so
wise
it's
listener.
I'm cynical for right now, but I hope that more people get pushed into positions so that teams can be a little bit more daring with their content, because if this thing is going to survive, I think we need to be. I think we need to be a little bit more. Teams need to differentiate themselves, and the league itself needs to also do a better job as well. I don't think it can just be, your standard YouTube, successful, hey, top 10 plays of the week. Hey, highlights. Hey, the best guide ever. Top 10 clips, most undervalued, what is it, like the rare Twitch meme, compilations. Like, yeah, it does well algorithmically, but like, is that what you want to be known for? Is that what you want your league to be? Just clips on guides on everything that's made esports for the last 10 years? Or do you want to be a little bit more forward thinking? Do you want to have, I don't know why my brain's just stuck on documentaries. I just want to like see more like long form Overwatch content, but that's just me.
It needs to be all of it. Like, honestly, we need highlights. We need top 10 videos.
Oh, for sure.
We need interviews. We need documentaries.
Agreed.
And you need somebody leading a content team who can manage all of those workflows simultaneously. And I've been can't say that.
So let me I think the league is doing, they're stepping in the right direction with some things. I think their content with Sideshow and some of the players reviewing old VODs, that's very valuable, but they've also done that in the past.
Boston
in a higher
was spilling
production
the
value.
tea.
It's fine. It's something.
It's great when Yiska's on it.
Sure. I hear enough of them as it is, so
Fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
but no, I think definitely more is, I'm not going to scoff in the face of more, but I think I challenge it a little bit more. Throw something different into it. It can't just be like a normal interview show.
There's not.
I don't know.
Well, there's just not enough. We haven't gotten the right people to be able to manage how much content people want and need to consume. Because we've definitely had people who, like Overwatch League sucks at this. They blow their load on awesome content in the first 2 weeks. And then we get that same content for the next 6 months.
It's big
and then they cut it
reuse.
out. They just like get it out and it's all reused and you're sick of it. We've had teams on the other side of the things who put absolutely minimum effort in. You have to have somebody who actually goes, what does our short form content social strategy look like? What does our medium form content social strategy look like? And what is that? What platforms do those go on? What does our long form content strategy look like? How often are we posting on these things? How many people do we need? Are we contracting these out? Or does it make more sense to do it in-house? And now that I know how much these things cost, there are Overwatch League teams who I am confident pay 1 or 2 persons' salary. So we'll say about $100,000.
Sure.
And then about $20,000 in equipment. And then that is the budget. Which $120,000 to prop up a $20 million franchise is just not enough. It's people who are ignorant of the cost of what it takes to make that, to really ingrain that strategy. So, hey, Overwatch League teams, if you want to do it right, call me. We can make it happen.
There you go.
I know the contractors. I know when to contract. I know when to hire. It's not as hard as they're making it look. It really isn't. Anyways, I'm sorry. Yiska, you've been quiet.
Yeah, I'm kind of having, the bedtime.
Is it bedtime? Is it about that time?
I mean, I'm old.
You are old.
It might be
Very-
that
so
time.
very
I think
old.
it's that time anyway. This is kind of a ranting. I hate when I'm gone for a week or two because then I feel like so much of this is just like catch up and like shooting the shit, you know?
But that's my favorite episodes.
Some
We
people
just get to shoot the ish, you know?
Some people hate it. In
Yeah,
which case,
well, some people can stick it, you know?
there's lots of great podcasts that you can watch instead, and there's timestamps in the video.
True.
Anyways, big thanks to everybody who hung out today. Hope you enjoyed it, even if we are being, just us. Thanks for loving us for us. Big thank you to our brand new super croucher, Fire Element. Welcome back. And thanks again for supporting the show. Big thanks to our patron producers, Refined Bean, Fradino Pin, Battlecrab Lotion, Rex Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Shara Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B. Owen, Chris R34444, Poor Bjorn, I listen to this podcast whilst on the toilet and in the shower thinking of Yiska, Peace Camper, Anxiety Pokemon, Sir Girthalot, Bronzebot, Boohow, Evan, and Alex S. Thank you all for supporting the show. If you like the show, there's a few ways to support it. We do stream live on YouTube every Wednesday. Today's Thursday, but normally every Wednesday at noon Pacific at youtube.com/tacticalcrouch. We also tweet out the link ahead of time, and you can also see the schedule on the YouTube page where it's like, scheduled stream for this date at this time. And you can put up a little reminder link and everything like that. So that's pretty nice and handy. To support the show, you can become a patron for as little as 99 cents, $1 a month over at patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. You get access to a patron-only Discord. You get access to our patron game nights. Sounds like we're starting a little anime club. Lots of like little just fun stuff that you could do with us. You can do it right there at patreon.com. If you want the emotes that you can get for watching the stream live, you can become a member. And we have a $2 membership, a $5 membership, and a $10 membership per month there as well. So you can definitely sign up here and support here as well. Otherwise, a great free way, other than just being here, subscribing to the YouTube, following us on Twitter at tactical_crouch, is to leave a 5-star iTunes review. We'll thank you on the next show. It helps us kind of just rise up in the rankings on, for people who are searching for Overwatch and competitive Overwatch and Overwatch League content. They'll find us sooner. Other than that, as for me, you can find me everywhere. I actually have been doing some YouTube things, posting some microphone reviews and stuff, more on like the technology type stuff, and really proud of them. And people have been really nice about.
They look super clean.
About them. So thanks. I appreciate it. You can follow that at youtube.com/kicktripodyt. Otherwise, find me everywhere else at kicktripod. Joe, shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
What am I doing this week? Oh, I thought up some fun and interesting trade ideas. And that probably will spawn a broader topic on player trades come next week. As I was thinking through it, I kind of like rambled text wise. So expect that soon. Not a BlizzCon line primer, but like almost like a wish list is probably what I'm writing today. And outside of that, shout outs. Big shout out to Lex Friedman. Found that podcast quite interesting. Definitely give that a listen to if you're into anything history, science, just comedy related. It's a great podcast to listen to, just to put on and have background noise. Shout out to Dogman, killing it in the Overwatch game, is doing a good job. And what else? Shout out to Water. Yeah, Hydro homies in the chat. Do that. Drink up.
Sure.
Your turn.
Yiska?
So the Harsha interview was actually only part one, right?
So we cut off. We went chronologically from Harsha SC journalist to Harsha,
I want more Harsha journalist.
the
You should add more
GM
about that.
slash the GM slash coach Titans guy, and then we now logically have to go. How did he land at the Outlaws, and how are the Outlaws going to develop? And while it won't be quite as juicy as this one, I think there's still a bunch of very interesting information, very novel information in there that a lot of people will go, huh, really? And especially if you're an Outlaws fan, you will probably learn a bunch more about your team, about your head coach, and
Co-head coach.
yeah, I think co-head coach, very true. And yeah, we had a good couple. We really went into detail on the new recruits signed. We went, by the way, we also talked about Jake, of course, extensively. So if you're into the Outlaws at all, I think that interview might be as exciting as the one today. Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you ask him about like co-head coaches and like what their roles are specifically?
Nobody sort of talks about it, and I'll also say I think Junkbuck is someone that is very knowledgeable about Overwatch, extremely so. As I perceive Harsha, it's someone that is wise beyond his years, and is the type of leadership guy. But I will also say, and that's also how I kind of framed the interview. If you want to listen to it, I think it's a much better listen than a read of the Too Long Didn't Watch, I think. But I described his career as liquid in the sense that he pours into the roles that are required of him in that situation.
Yeah.
But not so to overly bend. He has the ability to just like freeze up and say, hold on. This is where it derails. And in that regard, that's especially why his job descriptions never really truly fits whatever he was doing for the team.
Definitely not a rigid person, and his career trajectory supports that. Or sure, it is no surprise that so many people want him around, and it's no surprise that we have been incredibly, at least hopefully, positive about him and his career on this show. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Listen to what people have to say and listen to what he has to say, and take your own opinion, and don't just be beholden to performance.
Yep. All right, lads, we're out of here. Thanks so much for hanging out for episode 160. We will see you next week. I promise. Love you. Bye.